There's an island I used to go to up in Lake Superior. It's in the middle of Lake Superior, close to Canada. It's called Isle Royale. The entire island is 45 miles long and 11 miles wide. It's the largest island in the largest freshwater lake in this hemisphere of the world. The entire island is a national park. All right, so there's no private property on the island. The entire thing is a national park. It's the least visited, most revisited national park in the country. Now, every 75 years, Lake Superior freezes over. Okay, Lake Superior is a huge body of water. It's not easy to freeze over, but every 75 years it does. All right, it actually froze over 5 years ago. All right, kind of followed that cycle. Before 5 years ago, all right, so that would have been like the 30s, I believe, 30s or 40s, the lake froze over, and a bunch of moose and one wolf pack crossed over the lake and got stranded on this island. Okay? In that time, those few moose have expanded to over 800 moose on the island, all right? And that one wolf pack has become 3 wolf packs, okay? Now, when you get to this island, if you're planning to go backpacking, you have to go through a little bit of an orientation with some park rangers because there are so many moose, and moose can be dangerous. So one of the things they tell you is that the moose on Isle Royale are especially stupid, okay? Moose in general are not terribly intelligent, but the ones in Isle Royale are especially dumb, okay? As a matter of fact, they say that if you come across a moose, you need to keep your distance, but if they start to act aggressive, all you have to do is hide behind a tree. All right? In the 1 second that you hide behind a tree, the moose will forget that you ever existed. All right? You will be erased from its memory. As a matter of fact, if you go behind a tree for 1 second, and then you pop back out 3 seconds later, the moose will be shocked. The moose will be like, where did you come from? All right? So the moose are really, really stupid, and there's a reason why they're very stupid. They have very limited predators on the island. Like I said, there are some wolf packs. Food is so plentiful, they don't have to worry about it whatsoever. They can eat without thinking, and they can live without much threat of predation. And for that reason, they have grown very, very dumb. It's interesting that certain levels of adversity and suffering are necessary for developing aptitude, innovation, and strength. These are not necessarily innate qualities in the same vein as intelligence. All right? We know that people are born with different levels of intelligence, and that can change over the course of lifetime, but something like intelligence is oftentimes innate, whereas things like creativity or innovation or transformation, those are not innate qualities. Those are more learned qualities. They are something that's gained through curiosity, something that's gained through experience, and through learning because of failure and because of adversity. Unfortunately, I think that many people, if not most people, squander their suffering and adversity in our present social environment. They do not use their suffering as a kind of payment to become wise. And through that wisdom, gain more in riches. Proverbs 3, verse 13. We're going to be spending most of the day in Proverbs. In verse 13, it says this: happy is a man who finds wisdom and who acquires understanding. For she, when they say she, they mean wisdom, for she is more profitable than silver, and her revenue is better than gold. She is more precious than jewels. Nothing you desire can equal her. Long life is in her right hand. In her left, riches and honor. Her ways are pleasant, and all her paths peaceful. She is a tree of life to those who embrace her, and those who hold on to her are happy. Wisdom gains a man or woman anything wealth or power can give you, and more. And yet so many people throw away their life experiences that could have bought them wisdom. Instead, many people hold on to their suffering and pain and use it as justification to be petty, to be mean, to be lazy, and to be selfish. It is the folly of the fat moose living on an island of plenty without adversity, thus growing more stupid by the year. Though we may live in a world with more wealth and more health and more access to both for every person alive than ever in human history, we will never live in a world where hardship, where injustice and suffering are vanquished. Instead, all that money and all that freedom will turn the adversities of life into a reason to complain and rage rather than transforming a person into something stronger, something wiser. You know, yesterday I was reading a psalm during my quiet time, and as I was reading this psalm, it hit me like a thunderbolt, the meaning behind what I was reading. And I don't know if you've ever done that before. Maybe you've listened to a song on the radio and the song just so acutely described the mood that you were in, you almost just have to pull over. And as I was reading the psalm, that's what I felt reading this particular psalm. It was a verse that had such clarion truth, it was piercing. I literally just stopped and thought about this for a little while. I didn't know until that moment that I'd been searching for words to more aptly articulate something that had been troubling me in the deepest parts. Psalm 73, I'll let you turn there real quick. Psalm 73, 21 through 22. This is actually a long psalm. This is just one stanza in the middle of the psalm. I'm going to be reading the Christian Standard Bible version of this. But in verse 21, it says this: "When I became embittered, and my innermost being was wounded, I was stupid and didn't understand. I was an unthinking animal towards you." I'm just going to read it one more time. "When I became embittered and my innermost being was wounded, I was stupid and I didn't understand. I was an unthinking animal towards you." Now, this is the psalmist addressing God. It's a lyric that describes a particular kind of human folly that happens over and over and over again in life. Something happens to us. Something out of our control. Something happens to us. Something unfair. Something injures us, whether it was intended or not. And that injury stands without recompense, without restitution, without explanation, or without an apology. And that injury turns into an inner wound, something inside of us. And that wound is a rich soil for bitterness. And in turn, such wounds and bitterness make us unthinking and make us stupid, like an animal. Those four little lines describe almost every cycle of human violence that has ever occurred. Any wound not wholly forgiven is the birthplace for savagery. That little stanza explains why God commands us to forgive and how we know whether or not we have forgiven. Because any remnant of bitterness is enough to start the cycle of human violence and aggression once again. The wisdom of that psalm explains to us what happens when we do not turn our pain into wisdom, but instead allow our pain to make us stupid. I've watched over and over again as Christians dismiss their anger as a kind of righteous indignation, when in reality it is nothing more than what this verse describes: the total degradation that bitterness brings when wounds are not forgiven. The person that can accept what I'm saying, what the Bible is teaching, will become wise.
Amen.
The person that is deaf to this or unyielding is destined to become a fool and a villain. Therein lies the whole catch with God's will, with God's words, with his written account of what he wants. The wise will understand and the foolish will not. Isn't that something? If you're wise, you get it. If you're foolish, you don't get it. The pursuit of wisdom is something, like I said, it's something I've become so passionate about, because to me, it lies at the heart of why people are content in this world and why people are not content in this world. Why some people volunteer to do good and to be generous, and while others choose to be selfish and miserly. There have been times and cultures in human history where wisdom was the highest virtue a person could attain to. Like where if you were wise, that's being important. If you were considered wise, then you were important. It was a distinction that marked you as significant in the world in which you lived. Only the wise would be allowed to possess important roles in a given community. Like, people had to think that you were wise in order to do anything important. And wisdom wasn't something you could fake. Because wisdom showed itself through the fruit of your life, which you could not hide. Your life was a reflection of whether or not you were wise. Wisdom meant that your family was in order, that your finances were in order, that you were respected where you worked. People liked being around you. And if those things were true, if those things were not true, then nobody would think you were wise. You could be a genius with all the potential and talent in the world and have none of the fruits that go with living under the banner of wisdom. No matter how smart, no matter how talented, if your life didn't show that you had lived wisely, you would not be given any position of honor. Intelligence and talent don't equate to wisdom. That's what's intriguing to me about wisdom. You know, I was reading this book a while ago, and the book was trying to explain how you can know God's will. Because isn't that slightly complicated? Like, what is God's will in a situation? You know, is it God's will for me to take this job, to leave this job and go to this job? Is it God's will for me to move over here? Is it God's will for me to buy this car or to buy this car? Or is it God's will for me to buy this house? Is it God's will for me to marry this person or give up on this relationship? There's all sorts of questions about where we really, really want to know God's will. As a matter of fact, if we could be sure of God's will, we would do it. That's what we tell ourselves. If God would just come down and tell us what to do, we would do it. And so what this book was trying to do, it was trying to tell you, how can you know God's will? Well, the conclusion of the book essentially said that God's will isn't something that's set for every person. It's not like, this is the path this is the right path. You have to do this and this to get on the right path. This is the wrong path. This decision means you're on the wrong path. This decision means you're on the right path. So many times we're faced with decisions where there is no right or wrong. It's not a matter of that. Like, you can be sure that if you're thinking of murdering someone, that's definitely the wrong path. But very few choices in life are so clear. It's filled with black and white. I mean, with gray. And then we also think if God would just give us special revelation. That's what I need. I need a dream. I need a vision. I need God's voice. And the book was saying, actually, that's not what the Bible is teaching, to know God's will. The best way to understand God's will is to become wise. Yeah. Wise people can discern the vagaries of God's will in nuanced situations. The best way to know what you are doing in life and what pleases God is to be wise and is to become wise. The best way for God to bless you in your life is to become wise. The path towards happiness is wisdom. The path towards wanting to be secure and not insecure is to become wise. Confidence comes when you are wise. Good families come when you are wise. Happy marriages are created through wisdom. But I guess that wisdom can seem like an elusive concept for people at a time. Like, what does wisdom actually mean? I think for a lot of people it's like, well, I'll be wise when I get old. No. And let me tell you this, having dealt with a lot of different ages, being a minister for the last 25 years, I have found that wisdom is no more blessed in older people as it is in younger people. I have found that foolishness is just as contagious, no matter your age. But it has seemed for a long time like wisdom was a consolation for, like, being old. Almost like, hey, I know you can't do much anymore. But at least people think you're wise. I think we have to see wisdom in some different light. Wisdom, to me, is not boring. It's more like a prize that is hard won. It's something you fight for and achieve. It's like a key that unlocks the most important doors. Only a select few achieve wisdom, not because they were special, but because they cared.